Hello and welcome to Tucson, Arizona. I'm Randy.
I'm Rhodes.
So what's up, dude? You wanted to do a video? What's on your mind? Said you want to do videos. We're out here. It's your idea. What do you want to talk about?
I wanted to learn more about cars, but I don't know what part I want to learn about most because there's a lot of them.
What do you mean?
Like what most parts do in a car. Because when Daniel was fixing his car, he was explaining all these parts, and I never knew what they went. He was naming them, but I just didn't know what they did. And I
Oh,
completely,
we're replacing the clutch?
yeah.
Well, I'm not a master mechanic, so I'm going to get a lot wrong, but what are you trying to figure out?
Like, what if a car is broken down? Like, what if I get a car and it's broken down? Like, what parts would I need to replace?
So, how to troubleshoot what's wrong with the car?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so the basics are, so I had no idea that's what we were going to talk about. So the basics, you need fuel, you need air, and you need spark. Those are the three basic fundamentals of what you need in order to make a gas engine go. So you'd have to systematically go through and make sure that, first off, that's why the first thing most people ask is, did you put gas in the car? Because if you don't have gas in the car, your car's not going anywhere. So in order to make internal combustion happen, like you've heard suck, squeeze, bang, blow when we're talking about that, right?
Yeah, about
And
pistons.
the cyclic rate. So those are the four stages of four-stroke motor. So you need to squeeze in air and fuel, compress it, and then have the spark plug ignite at the top of it, create the explosion, and just keep firing the pistons down. Because basically each one of your pistons are just rotating a shaft, which pushes other parts around. Like when you were asking questions about the difference between like overhead valves and old school style. So
Yeah.
you'd have to start from square one. Is your battery dead? Like, do you have fuel going? Most modern vehicles, anything you're ever going to own, is going to have a test port to verify you're getting fuel. You check fuel filters. There's so much you'd have to start. Like, you'd really have to figure out. And then that's when you call me, and then I start helping you figure it out. Yeah, that's the first clutch I've ever replaced in a car.
That one?
Mm-hmm.
Daniel said you've done it like twice.
Never done it. I know how to do it. I've never had to do it. I almost had to do it when I owned the TC, the silver car.
Yeah.
But I was having synchros go out, so I was going to have to rebuild the entire transmission and clutch and everything, and started having problems. So modern cars, you've got built in, they're called synchros. It's to synchronize the speed of your transmission and your motor. Again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm probably going to get a lot of this wrong. So if you're a mechanic and you know more than me, leave it in the comments. But when you push in the clutch, it's speed matching your motor and your transmission, so you don't just grab another gear and dump a whole lot of power into a transmission that's not ready for it and grenade all your gears. But the synchro started going out in second gear on that car. So when you'd go to shift in a second, it would sometimes catch. So because the transmission hasn't met the speed of my motor yet. So you have to get all those replaced, and that's just internals. So at that point, you're rebuilding a transmission, which I have also never done, and that I won't do.
Is transmission like complicated or something to replace?
In a manual, it's not super complicated, but in an automatic, it's very complicated. There's just a lot more gears, and it's not that it's terribly complicated. Like, I could do it. I've got zero interest in spending several days cracking that casing open, making sure I get all the right gears and all the right spots. So if you ever look at the internals on a manual transmission versus an automatic, it's two very different systems. A manual transmission is so much easier. So when his clutch went out, it's easy. Plus, it's a small car with small parts. Like the gearbox. So when the gearbox broke on the Suburban and I had to get that replaced, I took it out and I put the new one in. I just took it out, took it to my transmission shop. They were like, "Yep, you detonated it. It's a boat anchor. We've got to get you a new one." So I bought a new one, and then I put the new one in here at the house. So that the gearbox, so that alone weighed more than your brother's entire transmission, and that box is like a third the size of the transmission for my truck because it's a 3/4 ton 4x4 Suburban. So it's the big transmission, and the piece I replaced was only like a third the size and weight of my transmission, and I had a hard time picking up that. Whereas your brother's transmission, when I unbolted that, it just boop, like
It was
you could have carried it really light, all aluminum, not very heavy, not a lot going on, and it's a 6-speed plus reverse. So yeah, super easy to work on. There's some of it kind of sucks because it's kind of tight, and it's a side. The nice thing is though is because it's a sideways engine and because it's front wheel drive and it's small. Um, there's a lot of room around it, so it was easy to pull out without too many headaches, especially having a motor picker and everything. But yeah, talking about fixing a car is more complicated. Like you'd have to have a specific thing that's not working right in order to dive into what's wrong.
okay. And another question. So the speedometer on like any car, how does that work? Because the car is an electric. It can't just read the speed of the tire or just read the speed.
You have speed sensors, so it depends on the car. But I think again, this is I'm not a mechanic. I have rebuilt a few cars, but um, you've got a cable. So unlike my old Chevys, so like the Beast and the Dually, I think the Suburban is the same way, but I'm not 100% because I haven't taken it apart and I've never had to take one apart. It's a cable that goes out and down, and it goes all the way back to, I believe, the transmission. And in the transmission, you'll have a sensor that bolts into the transmission, kind of in like, if I remember this right, on the last square body I did, I think it's kind of the top of the transmission on the driver's side, kind of up, not all the way at the top, but kind of off to the side. And inside the transmission, there's another sensor mounted onto that's spinning, and every time it passes by, it sends a signal. That's how the electronic ones work. It sends a signal which sends back to the speedometer and tells how fast to go. With the mechanical ones, I feel like I've had to deal with this once before, and it's kind of similar. I just don't remember how it works. The same kind of thing though. A cable goes back to your transmission, and as your transmission rotates, it's telling the speedometer to go up and down. So if I remember right, even the electronic and the manuals both go back to electronic and digital or whatever, analog and digital. Sorry, that's the term I'm looking for. They both go back to the transmission, and there's a sensor that's telling it how fast everything's spinning, and then that goes. And it's similar thing, I believe, for your your tachometer. So, yeah, the world of cars gets pretty crazy, and it really comes down to what type of cars you're talking about. Like everything I own are Chevys, so I understand how to work on Chevys, but
Yeah. How difficult is wiring? Like not
wiring sucks.
not like wiring a car like you're stealing and wiring. I'm talking about like
Replacing all the wiring in a car. Is that what you're talking about?
not replacing, like adding wiring to a place where it shouldn't
Adding,
need to
it's
go.
not bad. What are you talking about adding?
The bike outside has no speedometer. So
Oh, you're talking about a motorcycle now. You're not talking about a car
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah, you're talking about the old rat rod out front.
yeah.
It's not terribly complicated. It's annoying. So you remember the drag bike that I had? The silver one I traded for the dually.
Yeah.
So that was a drag bike. So that was an SNS drag bike. That was meant to go really fast in a straight line for a short period of time. That's what that bike was built for. So when I got that bike, it had an old halogen headlamp and nothing else. It had a single tail light. So it was a brake light with the license plate light, and that was it. Like, technically, nothing about that bike was right for driving on the road.
No.
I had dragged tires. I had Yeah, a custom rear end on it. Um, I had to wire in turn signals onto that bike. There was no speedometer. There was no nothing on that bike either. Um, so I had to wire in all those turn signals. I had to wire in new headlights when I put the light bar on it for headlights. I had to wire all that. It's not terribly complicated unless you're like me and you're OCD about your wiring and you don't want it everywhere.
I don't like any wires everywhere.
Yeah, so you're kind of limited to space on a motorcycle, like especially on a Harley, because you don't have any plastics to hide anything in. If you're getting a crotch rocket, you've got plastics to hide things, so you can stuff stuff. You can stuff wire bundles and everything easier in a crotch rocket. Like my first bike was this old clapped out CBR 600, and
Yeah, the one in the back that's all red.
no, that's a Seca. That's a Seca too. That's a Yamaha.
I
My first one was a Honda CBR. You've never seen the first one I had. It was beat to hell. The fairings were all busted up. Um, Everything was starting to go out on that bike, but I loved everything about it. But that one, it's covered in plastics called fairings. So you can take all these fairings off and strip the bike down and make it look bare bones. But with all the plastics on there, you can hide quite a bit behind those plastics. No, the Seca was the second motorcycle I had. Yeah, the red Seca 2.
would you ever let it go?
You'd need a whole new motor. That motor seized.
The motor ceased.
The motor seized. You'd have to replace the motor. And at that point, on an old Yamaha Seca, it's only a 600. You'd be better off saving up your money and buying like a little 500.
Well, it's like because that
Like a
one's
little
like
Suzuki.
I don't
That's a
know why.
partial. It's a partial fairing bike. You'd get old dudes would be like, "Damn, dude! Like you built a Seca." Like, but younger people would be like, "Man, it's a goofy old grandpa bike." Like, you'd be in a position where it's not fast enough to like be cool to people, and it's not modern at all. Like, I mean, it's a cool old bike, and they were pretty rad back when they first came out. And they were pretty rad for a while. I mean, it's kind of cutting edge stuff. But nowadays, you can pick up a little 600 or even a little bit smaller for dirt cheap. Finding a motor for that thing is going to be not impossible at all. I have found them,
But it's gonna be.
but it's annoying. And then you have to tear the whole bike apart, replace the motor, make sure you do everything right. And that's always the pain about doing it yourself when you're not trained. There's a lot of things that are just unknown. You're going to have to Google a lot. And there's probably not going to be a lot of information out there on how to rebuild a Seca 2. There are people that collect those bikes, and that's got all the plastics and everything, which is why someday it was going to come here and I was going to replace the motor on it and put it back on the road.
Yeah, 'cause it looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool looking bike, but if you compare it to a modern bike,
Modern
it's
bikes,
dated.
yeah, modern bikes I like. Don't get me wrong. My favorite bike, well, I have two, but my top one that I've researched more is the S1000RR and then the H2R.
Yeah, you're not getting H2R, dude.
No, they're hella expensive and they're
Well, the H2 by itself is hella expensive, and they're kind of getting hard to get because people were buying those up, and then several people wrecked them out. But the H2R is really hard to get your hands on, and unless you start racing bikes like professionally,
I'm
you
not
kill
getting that.
yourself on that bike. I mean, you can almost kill yourself on the H2. That thing's insane. But yeah, you're better off just getting like a CBR 600 or an R1
Yeah.
or I mean an R6.
I was just about to say I want the R6 or the R7.
The R6 are sweet. I don't know anything about the. Isn't the R7 like a 500 or a 350 or something? I think it's a smaller bike, isn't it?
It looks about the same size
Let's
as
see.
the
No,
R6.
but the motor.
The motor,
Yamaha R7.
I think it's 600 cc.
YZF R7. It's only 10 grand.
That's cheap.
I know I stopped following crotch rockets quite a while ago because I'm too old and kind of big. It always looks weird when a heavy guy is on a crotch rocket. Let's see, what size motor? That's all the other specs. CC. Oh, okay. So it is a 689. So which one's the one? Maybe I'm thinking of the Suzuki that's got the smaller, like a 350 or something like that. It's a smaller motor. 689 cc's is not a good motor for you to start on. It's a bit much. You should be really looking for
250 is the R4.
R4. That's the one I'm thinking of. The
Yeah,
R4.
250 is the R4.
That's the one I'm thinking of. I see a couple of these around town. They look pretty sweet. I'm not mad at those plastics. It's a really good looking bike, and a 400 is about the right way to start. Because I started off with a 600, and I am still surprised that I've only laid it down once. Because I had no idea what I was doing on that bike. I had no permit, no training, no nothing. I just was convinced I could ride a motorcycle. And I did. But it went down.
Pretty quick.
Like I was barely moving. And at speed, a motorcycle is a lot easier to control than when you're just kind of cruising through a parking lot. And I was cruising through a parking lot to my buddy's apartment, and I was going real slow and was kind of turning and hit soft gravel and just went bonk. The second time I laid down a bike, my buddy had what was that bike? He had two. He had a CBR 600, and he had, this was years later. It was like 3 or 4 years after I got rid of my clapped out CBR 600. He picked up a nicer CBR, and then he picked up this other bike that was kind of like the Seca. It's a partial fairing. It wasn't a full fairing. I don't remember what it was. It was nice. It was silver. I'll remember what it was later. And we went out riding together. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't think it was a Suzuki. I do have a buddy that's all about Suzuki, and he's owned, I don't know, 10 or 12 different Gixxers. This was a partial fairing bike, and we were out cruising, bombing all over the valley, and then we were coming back to put the bikes back in the garage at his place, and he had this big, like 4 or 5 inch concrete lip going into his garage, so it wasn't a smooth roll in. So I rolled up and stopped, and he had a rock, it was a gravel driveway, so I stopped in the driveway. He rolled his bike in, backed it in, parked it where he wanted it, and then he had me coming up in, and I was trying to get up over that stupid hump, and I couldn't, at just crawling speed, I couldn't get up there. So I backed up, and I gave it a little bit more throttle. Well, it kind of, like it kicked the bike sideways when I was trying to get up there. It kicked that because it had a very narrow front tire. And it kicked off sideways, and when it kicked sideways, I started falling, the whole bike started falling sideways, and then I wound up goosing the throttle and popping the clutch. And I rode that bike forward and up the wall because it was a two car, it was like a 4-car garage with 2 garage doors and then a big brick wall right in between the two.
Uncle Nick.
And I kind of cut, no, this is a dude named Casey. I caught the edge of it and went straight up that wall and then rolled back down. And by that point, he was on the side to help me catch it, so it never like dumped, but then it still kind of went down. And I wound up hitting the kill switch with my thumb and kind of laid it down. Then they picked it back up and got back in, and I was like, nah, dude, I'm done riding bikes at your house. Because I wasn't qualified to do that. When I got my first Harley, I'd been riding motorcycles at that point for a while, but I was used to crotch rockets. Harleys are very different. So I got my first Harley, and we were out at the house out in the valley before we moved back into town.
Yeah.
And it was a steep drop in off of the road because my property was lower by about 8, probably about 8 feet in elevation over a pretty quick drop off, and it was all gravel. And I was out cruising my bike around, boom, 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 bombing around, and come in at an angle into my yard. And as soon as I left the pavement, that bike wanted to like slip and slide. And so I didn't lay it down all the way, but it damn near hit the ground. Like it went all the way down. I managed to catch it and fight it.
Harleys are heavy.
And then I stood it up. What's it, a 600-pound bike? 400-pound bike. I think the one I have right now is like a 600-pound bike. Because I was a smaller Harley. That was a 1200. So it was a leader bike, so it was fast, and I had drag pipes and straight pipes and everything else.
Yeah.
That was a fun bike, but then I traded it in for a much bigger Harley. So my Harley now is like a couple 100 pounds heavier than my first one. And then I got the drag bike, and the drag bike weighed nothing. Like that bike
Yeah,
was
the drag bike
that
was.
that bike was so damn small.
I like that
But
drag.
then my aunt laid that bike down in my driveway. She tried to leave it.
Oh yeah,
We
I
were
heard
leaving
about
to
that.
we were leaving to go on a tombstone run, and um, they trailered one of James's bikes down, but they didn't have enough room. They didn't have enough room on that trailer to bring down two bikes. So she borrowed the drag bike to go on a day ride from Tucson to Tombstone. And when we was it then? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it was then. It was when we went to leave. She laid it down in the driveway, trying to leave the driveway because my driveway goes out, and we're on a street where it's got a pretty aggressive curb for rain to prevent rain, and she kind of came down, and she was going slow. If she would have been going at speed, she'd have been fine. But because she was going slow, she was tiptoeing, walking the bike out. And then she hit a point where the front tire was out on the road and the back tire was still in the driveway and her feet couldn't touch the road anymore. So because she was going slow, the whole thing started going on her and then she dumped my bike. And I just walked back outside with all my gear and I see my bike. And I'd only had that bike for a couple of months and that bike just goes bunk. Like I just finished putting new lights and I just finished wiring it. And I just paid $450 to have a new seat made for it. Like I was pimping out this bike and then I just watch it go bonk onto its side. So then she's like, motherfucker, and starts freaking out. So I get the bike stood back up. She's like, oh. She's like, I'm so sorry, dude. I can't believe I just dumped your bike. I was like, it's all right. Like, no harm, no foul. Like, it caught foot pegs. It didn't really damage anything. Can't even tell. It wasn't like she low sided it or whatever. She just kind of bonk. And she was trying to hold it. She's like, help, help. She's still holding it halfway up. So it only actually fell like, I don't know, 10 inches from where she was holding it, like 10 inches off the ground. And then finally just couldn't hang on to it anymore. And it kind of fell. Uh, and that one didn't have like some traditional controls on it. All of its kill switches were in a different panel behind your left side down by your thigh. It didn't have any of the controls up top, so she couldn't even hit a kill switch up here. So she dumped it. I came over, killed it, stood the bike back up, and it was carbureted, so I had to like make sure it didn't flood the bowl or anything, and then fire the bike back up. It was a really fun bike, but not meant for what we did. So then we did a full day ride, and then she almost low sided it getting off the freeway because she hit some pretty slick stuff. I think she hit some oil patch on the exit ramp, and then hit some soft gravel and like speed wobbled the bike at like 20 miles an hour and almost laid the bike down. So we got back home, and then she didn't want to ride the bike no more. So the day before my wedding, it was a few days later, Harley was having a big event, so we rode down to Harley, and she refused to take my bike. She just got in the back of her husband's bike and rode out. And then now she tells me every time I go to Texas, she's like, I'll let you dump my bike. I'll let you dump one of my bikes, because she's got two bikes. I'll let you lay mine over. It's like, no, it's all right. So now my father-in-law has that bike, and I'm glad he hasn't killed himself on it yet. Yeah. But rewiring bikes sucks. And that bike needs so much work, dude. And someday, possibly, maybe he'll get his bike off of my property and actually get it running, because the last time it went away, he didn't do shit with it. But that bike
Yeah, 'cause
needs, it's
that's
got two head studs that are, head stud bolts that are broken off in it for the exhaust. Because it's got the big 2-to-1 exhaust on it.
yeah.
That's broken off. That bike's been laid down. I couldn't tell you how many times. I've got 2 or 3 old bent bars off of that bike in the yard over here. So the handlebars,
Yeah.
that bike has been laid down enough times from him out ripping through the desert and going off road with that bike
Yeah, not being careful.
that, oh hell no, that he would just demolish bars. So I have 2 or 3 of the demolished bars right over here.
No, if
I've got the stock fender, the stock rear, because he's got the saddleman tail section on it. I've got the stock fender back here, with some other old Harley parts that I've got. But yeah, that thing's been laid down enough. That's why he had that crash bar made for it, because he kept dumping it.
yeah, if I had just
You don't want that bike, trust me.
if no, I'm just saying in general, if I had like a motorcycle, I would be taking the best care of it. Not a single speck of dirt will be on that, and it will be rode like every day.
You better get a job you can ride a motorcycle to every day. 'Cause that's what I said. And now my poor Harley just kind of sits here most of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
time sucks. So don't have babies anytime soon, and you'll be able to have a chance to ride the bike. But
God no.
honestly, though, just like everyone else in the family tells you, and all of our friends tell you, you're surrounded by bikers. Like, yeah, a lot of bikers in your life, and every one of them tell you to start with a small motor because you're young enough that you're going to think you're invincible. You're going to goose that throttle one too many times. It's not. You're always going to wreck. Anyone out there, if you're watching this and you've made it this far in, please listen to me. You start riding a motorcycle if you never have before, you're going to wreck. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how bad. Like I've been hit by a car the day after I bought my big bike.
Oh yeah, he got rear-ended.
No, I got T-boned.
Oh, T-boned.
Yeah, I got T-boned. Flush. I ripped the front end off of that car. It's like they threw all the front parts of that car into the back seat when they left. The whole doghouse of that car, front bumper, grill, headlights, everything was destroyed on that car, and they had to shove it. The cops had to shove it in the back seat of the car. So something bad's going to happen. Like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Every biker I know has gone down. That's why those of us who ride a lot wear leathers. The dudes that are serious about their motorcycles and living that life, whether it be crotch rockets or Harleys or whatever.
They wear protection not to look stupid, but to be safe.
That's right. Like, I mean, I just moved all that whole gear cabinets in the house now. But, I mean, I've got, 5 or 6 different helmets. I've got...
Yeah, just about. And you have like 4 different jackets. You got like 3 different pairs of pants. You have specific shoes you wear to rides.
I've got chaps. I've got a few different pairs of chaps.
Yeah, you have a certain helmet that you wear for the Harley. You have a certain helmet that you give to Pi to make sure she's safe.
Yeah, she's got 2 or 3 helmets.
Yeah,
She's got a couple. Because the day I bought this Harley, I bought her the bubblegum pink helmet that she really wanted. And then I went and bought her a really nice helmet a few months later for long distance riding.
You don't buy anything just to look cool. No, you have to buy things for a motorcycle to be safe.
Yeah, my helmet's $900.
Yeah, if anything, I was looking into gear first before I bought the motorcycle because I wanted to see what gear would be able to be better. And I figured out a gear that's really used a lot in the motorcycle, especially crotch rockets, was the one with the little shark logo looking thing. And it's on the boots a lot. It's on the side of it.
I think I know what you're talking about.
It looks like a little shark. It kind of looks like that, but with like no face.
I'd have to see the logo.
Yeah.
I know Alpine Star is really big.
Wait,
Alpine. But it looks like an A and a star. Alpine Star is real big in like the dirt bike
exactly.
World.
The second photo of the glove.
Yeah, that's Alpine Star.
Yeah, to me it looks like a shark.
I can see that. But yeah, that's Alpine Star. I figured that's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
I had an Alpine Star jacket.
Yeah, but like the gloves alone are $100, but if it's to be safe,
I wear Sedici gloves. It's Sidici or something like that. I've got Sedici gloves.
Yeah, but I was looking.
You want to wear shoes that are designed for it. I've got Kevlar pants, so they're Kevlar weaved. They're super thick. They look like just blue jeans, just looking at them. They've got pockets inside. They come with knee pads, which were great a couple of times that I had problems with my bike. Like there was one night I was out cruising around, and the spring for my kickstand just disappeared. So I was dragging my kickstand. So I had to pull over and hold my bike up and be kneeling down, trying to hold my bike up and try to secure my kickstand because I was just bouncing a kickstand behind me.
Yeah.
And that type of stuff could cause you to wreck. That kickstand comes down and kind of lodges itself or something.
You're going up.
Yeah, it could do. It might not, but it was never worth the risk. So fortunately, I had some stuff in my saddlebags I was able to throw on. And that's the nice thing about a Harley versus a crotch rocket. Is you can put saddlebags.
Yeah. But that's also why in the crotch rocket terms, there's backpack.
Yeah, but if you don't want to go down wearing a backpack,
No, it.
that's the thing. People don't think they're going to go down.
But you're always going to will no matter what. Like I actually just recently saw a person on the crotch rocket go down on the. He was getting on an off ramp, and then he was exiting. He was taking a little turn, and he said, "Oh, I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna fall." Like, and then it cut to him falling and hitting the sidewall.
Mm-hmm.
He rode it. His bike went like 10, 15 feet. He just slid like a
Yeah,
good five
low
feet.
slided.
His friend, and it cut to his friend's point of view. His friend stopped, ran to him, pushed another guy out the way, and made sure he was okay first. And
Yeah,
then,
so
but his
that's
his bike was like kind of done for, but it was still
well, it's
rideable.
all plastics. On something like that, you're definitely going to destroy the plastics. And most crotch rockets, a lot of dudes take them off, but you've got these bars that stick out for low siding your bike. So if you low side your bike, you've got these bars that stick off that'll grind away. I've got some old pucks that I wore out on one bike. That I had a 1000 double R that I had
Ooh,
for a little while, and
should have kept it for me.
no, I got rid of it. No, and this is where my advice doesn't come from being a control freak. It comes from experience. Like I tell you all the time, if I give you advice, it's because I've got experience in it. So I had the 1000 double R I was buying for my buddy, making payments on it. Great bike, super fun. And one night was having a rough night, rode it angry, and came really close to killing myself. Like how I didn't high side that bike is a miracle because I was on it. It was GP geared. Like everything about this bike was built for the track, and it was the previous owner. It was his track bike,
Um,
so everything about it was built for the track, and that bike was so rad. But I was goosing it real hard through this one section of this one road that is really big, sweeping S turns. It's so good for like just tilting your bike all out and just getting it. And I was getting it, but I wasn't in the right frame of mind. I was getting it angry and wasn't paying enough attention to how I was riding. And that bike, I felt it. It scared the hell out of me. I felt it because I was leaning way in, right? I had my right knee bent way down, and I'm dipped hard to the right. And because I wasn't paying enough attention to anything and how I was riding, like I just was seeing red, that bike bucked a little bit. And how I saved it and how I got out of the speed wobble that I went into, because that bike lurched up hard. If I wouldn't have done whatever I did just right, that bike would have just whah, and thrown me and it high sided me, and I probably would have died because I was going hella fast. But I managed to save it, started dumping gears and coming out of the second turn, and I had to pull over and just shake.
yeah, because your body is just
Like
it's a
I
response.
knew I knew that like it was a miracle that I just made it through what I just done, and it was all my fault. I couldn't blame the bike. Nothing was wrong with the bike. It was all the rider. And I rode to my buddy's house, pulled up, got off the bike, and he was like, "Hey man, you wanna go for a ride?" I said, "No, I need a ride home." He was, what? I was like, "I can't keep paying for this motorcycle, bro. You're gonna have to take this bike back. Can I just get my cash?" And he was like, "All right, like sure." So he gave me back the money I'd already given him for the bike. He gave me a ride home, and that was it. And then I didn't own a motorcycle again until I bought my first Harley. So that was several years later. I realized that I was letting my anger and stuff in life happen, and I was riding like a maniac. And then I started paying attention. Like I really started thinking back. I'm like, man, I ride that bike a lot when I'm angry
So
and get you killed, man.
I'm pretty much like I'm taking out of this is like you don't want me owning a fast bike pretty quick because you don't want me doing the same thing that you did with your bike.
Well, it's not just me. I had a really good brother, really good friend die in his early 20s because he rode his motorcycle angry, and a drunk college girl was at a intersection at just a two-way stop, right? He was on the road going through. He didn't have to stop, and he was hauling ass. They estimate he was doing about 90 miles an hour down this road because he got in a fight with his girlfriend. So he was out on his bike, angry, just mobbing through gears through the city. It was over by the U of A, and this chick hit her little stop sign, looked, didn't see nothing, started going. My buddy hit that front fender, the passenger side front fender, hit so hard he went through her windshield and halfway out her driver window. So he was laid out basically across her like a seatbelt and died on impact. Riding angry isn't just because I did it. It's because it's one of the number one killers of all motorcycle riders. Speeding is the number one reason motorcycle riders go down. That is factually accurate. You can look up any statistic you want. You can look up any study you want. Speeding kills motorcyclists. It kills them more than anything. Other drivers not paying attention takes drivers out. It's what took me down. That's what gave me my big accident. So you not paying attention because you're in your own head and you're angry and you're just hauling ass, ripping through gears, you're going to be going so fast someone else doesn't notice you coming, or you're going to be just angry, not fully aware. Because a motorcycle, for anyone out there who's never rode a motorcycle, it's a full-time job. It's not like driving a car where every person I see is sitting there with their damn phone in front of their face. You're not texting and writing. I've seen people do it, and it's a quick way to go down. But like you have to compensate for every other car out there. We call them cagers, and you call them cagers for a reason. They're in a cage. You've got no cage. You have to compensate for what everyone else around you is doing. So it's not because I did it that I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this. Yes, I did it, but everyone else has done it too. And there are a lot of people that pay the price for that. So it's out of wanting to keep you alive and just trying to give you the advice. And it's not because I don't want you to go fast. It's because I want you to understand you need to learn how to handle the motorcycle before you can go super fast. You could still go fast as hell on that. Was it the R4?
Yeah, the R4.
Dude, they're still going to be quick. You're still going to be way quicker than you would be if you were in a car.
I think they're still going to be 60, just about, for a 250.
What do you mean?
For a 250cc is like about 60, 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, you can do more than that, I'm sure. But it's about the acceleration. Like, I'm sure you can go faster than that on that motorcycle. Like, a Ruckus can do like 50 miles an hour if you do work on them. So you just look up top speed of a R4. But I'm not telling you this just simply because I did it. I'm telling you this because lots of people, everyone does it. Everyone with a crotch rocket goes fast because they're fast. And it's the same thing with Hellcat owners. You know how many Hellcats have been wrapped around telephone poles or put?
A lot because they try to look cool.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, yes, it's that, but it's also because they don't understand how to control that much power. There's a big difference between owning a passenger car. Oh, man, yeah, I've been driving this Honda Civic for all these years.
I was thinking about Civic.
And I got exhaust and I got intake and I got this and I got that. So power to weight's really good in a Honda. Like, I love Hondas. I'm not crapping on them. But you go from driving something like that that's only got, 200 miles an hour, 240 miles or miles per hour, horsepower. You got like 240 miles or horsepower. Keep doing it. So when you've got a car, rewind, that only has 250 horsepowers and like 200 foot-pounds of torque, that feels fast. And it can be if your power to weight ratio is right, like in a Honda. And then you've got the guys that have got the Zs, right? And those have got some good pep to them. And then you start stepping up. Even guys with Porsche, you pick a Beamer. Like I had a buddy who had an M3 back in the day, and that car was freaking
M3s.
rad, and it was built. He had so much internals done to that motor. That thing was so freaking rad. It was the first car I ever saw that wasn't a Lamborghini with Lambo doors because he put Lambo doors on it. That M3
Pretty
was
cool.
so freaking rad. It was all blacked out. Oh, that thing was sweet. But him and all of his buddies rode the piss out of that car. A buddy of mine bought it, owned it for like a year, and then the motor went out because it had been ridden hard because it's a fast car. But even then, you get most of these cars, they've only got like 3 to 400 horsepower, right? Which is respectable as hell. Like that's a lot of horsepower. But then you're stepping up to a car that's got 800 horsepower. There's no in between. Like they didn't own something. They went from owning some little commuter car like the Scion TC that I
Some
had.
little cruiser bruiser to a little.
Well, the Scion TC I had. I mean, that thing probably had a little over 300 horsepower by the time I was done doing all the work on it. Like I probably had just like 320 horsepower. It was quick and power to weight ratio was amazing. I love that car. I miss that car every freaking day. But it wasn't a Hellcat. Now, if I'd gone from that to a Hellcat, and I've driven faster cars, I've driven beefed up Camaros, beefed up Corvettes.
Like Kelly.
Kelly's,
His.
yeah, his black one, the first one that he had a little over 500 horses. Like that car was stupid, and that was a car I was trying to buy, and then he sold it to some dude in Phoenix.
If you would have bought that, I would have.
I'd still have it. If I bought that car, I'd still have it. But I got the cash for it. He said he was selling it. I got the cash for it. Called him the day I got the cash for it. And he was like, bro, I sold it yesterday to a guy in Phoenix. So then I bought the Scion because I couldn't find another Camaro that wasn't beat to hell.
I love the Scion.
I love the Scion too. A car was freaking rad, but it wasn't the Camaro. It wasn't a built Z28. Like he put so much money into that car. All the internals were done. That thing was freaking sweet. But that car had a little over 400 horsepower. I've driven that car to its fullest extent. I've done 170 miles an hour in that car.
I would have loved
That
to.
it was terrifying, but exhilarating at the same time. So, like that is a big boy car. But then there's a big difference between just over, I think he had like 510, 520 horses in that car, which is stupid. Like the car felt like a damn rocket ship, and it felt like you could just like roll it at any given time. And he had really nice suspension on it. He like nothing on that car was stock anymore by the time he got rid of it. Um, and then he stepped up to the modern Z28 with the 427, and that thing was stupid fast too. And until they finally put a supercharger on the next more modern Camaro, it was the fastest car Chevy had ever built. That car was stupid fast and badass. And he wanted to sell that to me too, but I couldn't afford to buy it. So, because he just sold that one. He could have traded that in and spent $8,000 and got a Hellcat. That's how much money they were offering him for that car. So he made good money on that car, but he paid $50,000 for it when he bought it. Like, it's an expensive car. So, but 500 to 800 horses, or what's that? Almost 900 horses in some of those, like the Red Eye Hellcat or whatever. Like it's stupid.
The Cobra is like damn near 1,000, like 900.
Well, yeah, but you're
like
talking about
960.
the Mustang Super Snake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've known a bunch of guys to own those because I used to work with a lot of the Mustang Club owners. I actually
Yeah.
know the Mustang Club owner, president of Tucson. I know him really well.
And then the
But
the
the
Hellcats are like
Hellcat's got way more than that.
880.
The Hellcat's the most power to weight you can get. So even if you owned a, like say a Camaro or a Mustang with 500 horses, there's still a huge jump to go from that to a Hellcat. And you've got kids coming right out of high school getting good jobs and having the money to buy a Hellcat.
300 and or no, it says 717 horsepower. The Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat
Okay,
has up to.
now look up the Red Eye.
Red Eye model has up to 797 horsepower. The Hellcat charged 6.2 liter Hemi V8 engine also produces a lot of torque.
Yeah, insane amounts of torque. Okay, so you said 670. or
797.
797. Okay, so just shy of 800, which is what I was talking
Yeah,
about.
pretty much
Okay,
just
so now imagine even going from 500 to 800. That's a
that's
massive freaking increase.
that's like what 50 or 70 miles an hour difference.
Well, no, it's not about miles per hour. It's about percentages. Now you're jumping from 5 to 8. You're talking 50%, a little over 50% increase in power. Where do you learn to control that car? You don't.
Never.
So you wrap it around a pole. I was watching this great video the other day about this this dude and his wife, and I think he was in like a Trailhawk, which I think he was in something. He was in a fast SUV. They didn't ever show it, but for a few frames, you can see the shadow of it. So it's definitely a fast SUV. Looked like he was somewhere in Texas or in the South. The guy's a moron for sure, and this illustrates my point. So he's driving, and probably 10 or 12 car lengths ahead of him, there's a truck and then an SUV in front of that. And they're driving through this windy road. It's doing like this. And there's a pretty steep drop off on either side of this road. It's just a little 2-lane road, like a feeder road. Beautiful grass everywhere. So I think it's in the South. It definitely looked like a place that I've seen in Texas. So you got big drop off berm, like a 10 or 12-foot drop off on either side. So this road's built up. And then like a water spillway or something next to the passenger side of the road. So they're driving, and he goes, we'll see how quick I can catch up to those guys. She's like, what? And he's like, hold on. And then gooses it just as they go into a left-hand turn in the road. That car starts to spin out. He overcorrects very drastically and probably dumps the brakes, and then overcorrects again off to the right and goes right off the road and lands sideways in the water. And his wife is like, "Oh F, oh F, oh F, oh F," like freaking out the whole time. But he's like, gooses it in a corner. He doesn't even do it on a straightaway. He waits till they're halfway through the corner and then just punches the gas, and that car goes, "Brrrt." And he's like, "Oh no, 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 no," and then overcorrects, and then bonk off into the water. And now he's sitting sideways in his truck in a ravine because he wanted to show off. Like, that's the kind of crap that happens. I could show you 1,000 videos of Mustang owners at events burning out and stuff, and then just ramming into parked cars or
Yeah.
going up onto curbs and jumping 4 feet. I watched one the other day at a car meetup with this dude in a Hellcat Challenger, and he's just doing donuts in this big parking lot. And people keep coming up yelling at him. They're like, "Dude, man, we ain't doing that here. Like, if you want to park and chill, we're cool. Otherwise, you need to leave." And he's recording himself the whole time, right, holding his phone. And he's like, "Yeah, man, whatever. I don't know what these guys are bugging out about." And he like drives out and he goes to leave and he just roasting the tires, taking off, doing a big old burnout, and then loses control of the car and puts it into a wall. And he's like, "Oh, guys, I just wrecked my stuff. I just wrecked my car, man. I just wrecked my car." So he was doing a live stream the whole time, and everyone got to see him acting a fool, being asked to leave if he's going to act like that, and then him go like, "Whatever, man. I don't know why these guys are freaking out, acting all crazy and stuff. What are they bugging out?" And then showing off again, and then wrecking his car like immediately. So being fast without experience will get you killed on a motorcycle. So it's nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the history of motorcycles. If you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't be getting into the fast stuff right away because you can dump your bike real quick and there's no second chances. Like, you wind up a vegetable, you can wind up missing body parts, you can wind up paralyzed, you can wind up dead. There's so many risks involved. Why would you want to risk your future for 5 seconds of fun? Like, acceleration's a lot of fun, but doing it in a smart way and not in a "I'm angry," or "I'm so pissed off, I just got to fight with my girl, I'm just going to go wrap gears." Like, you could easily yeet yourself right off the planet. So that's why everyone in your family, it's because we care about you. We're all like, "Hey, you want to get a motorcycle? Cool, man. We all love motorcycles. We all ride." But riding smart is important. Like when I got hit by the car, the only thing that kept me safe in that entire situation was my situational awareness and my gear. Like I had no exit. It was it was late, it was late day traffic, so it's rush hour. There was 2 lanes going each direction with a turn lane, and there were cars in all of them. I was surrounded by cars. I had no way out. I couldn't dump my brakes, and I saw him. I was like, "Oh, that dude's about to come out." I couldn't dump my brakes because I had people right behind me. They were going to rear end me, so I was going to get hit by that car. I couldn't goose forward because all the cars were in front of me. There was nowhere to go, and I had cars in the turn lane of the oncoming traffic, so I couldn't like go out and around anybody. I couldn't weave between anybody. I was stuck. I had a logging truck next to me. I was stuck, and a truck went through, and I know exactly what happened. I was in the left of my lanes, and a big landscaping truck, like a tree trimming truck, drove by that intersection. So I was invisible, and that guy left, and they saw a break and they ran for it, and they didn't see that I was kind of at an angle from that truck. I was behind him, but I was at an angle. So I could see him past the truck, but he didn't look and see me. And as soon as that truck passed, he jumped out. Boom, hit me, and I went flying. So got nerve damage and a little bit of road rash on my arms because I wasn't wearing long sleeves. I was just wearing a vest, but I was wearing a helmet, riding boots, riding pants. I was wearing the gloves, the full nine. But when I landed on my back and slid. But that's why I wear a vest with armor in the back of it to help it absorb that impact.
Yeah, you told me about
But my
that.
elbows dropped and then I slid. So my right arm was numb for the better part of a year. I had tingles like my arm had fallen asleep. Yeah, I had those tingles for a year. And then big road rash here. And then a little bit on my lower back when my pants caught and kind of slid down a little bit. So there's a little bit of road rash on my lower back. But yeah, going down sucks and it's going to happen. So, I mean, it is what it is. And I was going 15 miles an hour when I got hit. But that dude was punching it, so he was probably doing close to 20 when he impacted me because he was trying to jump all 5 lanes of traffic.
Yeah.
Like an idiot. And then the cop showed up and wanted to grill me because they thought I was a criminal because I look like this on a Harley.
Yeah, cops just kind of some cops hate people who are on bikes.
Well, it's not that they hate them; it's that they're aware of what a lot of bikers do. I was raised by cops, so I've got a different opinion. I've got a more accurate opinion about cops. There are douchebags in every group of people you ever meet. There are good cops, there are bad cops, and there's going to be good cops and bad cops forever. There's going to be good mechanics and bad mechanics. There's going to be good electricians, bad electricians. There's going to be good Taco Bell servers and bad Taco Bell servers. It doesn't matter where you go. There's going to be those type of people everywhere. But this little chick, when she showed up, I look the way I do. I have the patches I have, and she just immediately wanted to know if I had weapons on me. And I'm like, yeah, I've got a knife on me. Like, what do you want? Like, it's not illegal to have a knife. Like, I didn't have a gun on me, but normally I do. But she just got all weird until Pi showed up and then was talking to the lady while I was being checked out by the paramedics and let her know that I just bought that bike the night before. And then she kind of calmed down and started getting a little bit more reasonable. But initially she was thinking, I was like, what's it matter if I have anything on me? I got hit by the car. I'm the victim. Like, and I've got dozens of witnesses that pulled over and waited for you to show up so they could give their witness statement. So yeah, the whole thing was stupid, but that can happen to anybody. I mean, you can watch videos of bikers getting hit all day long. The next thing is don't ever start crap with a car. You'll always lose. Doesn't matter that you're faster. You're not in a cage. So there's certain things about being a biker that you really have to have your head on a swivel. You need to have your head on a swivel just to pay attention for everything because you're not in a car. Flying rocks hurt. Like if you're rocking without a windshield or any kind of real guard, you're going to get hit by stuff. You're going to get hit by bugs. Bugs at 65 miles an hour hurt. So you wear a full face helmet because they hurt. So, there's certain things to be paying attention to, but the other thing is cars. I hate riding through town. I love riding on the freeway and back roads, um, but riding through town is a death trap. Intersections are a death trap. Like that's the kill box.
Yeah. That's probably the only thing that's stopping me is the intersections because
Intersections are freaky, dude.
I've seen so many hits in intersections on videos. I'm like, it's not even the highway that kills people; it's the
No, the
intersections.
highway doesn't unless you're in road rage. Like road rage is when you get killed on the highway. It's yeah, intersections because people aren't paying attention, especially with cell phones. You got some moron looking at their phone, checking their freaking X account or whatever, and or the worst is this: the people that just because it's hands free, it's illegal to have your phone up to your head, so they have it on speakerphone doing like this. I see that all day long. They're driving around. It's blah 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 blah. My day, your day. Let's go out tonight. Blah blah blah. Not paying attention, talking, and then boom, it strikes somebody. Or doing this. God, I see this all day long. Because
Yeah,
I drive a bigger truck for work, so I'm up higher, and I just see people doing this. When I pulled up in the driveway yesterday to back the truck in, I start backing up, and a car comes to drive around, and I look out, and she's sitting there like this, waiting for me with her phone up like this. So I finally back in, and then as she's driving away, she's still doing this. This will get you killed on a motorcycle. So you have to be paying attention to what everyone else is doing.
yeah.
So for those of you out there that don't ride, check it out. It's a lot of fun. But otherwise, watch out for motorcycles. Like we need more eyes on us. And the old saying, "the loud pipes save lives," is not true. That loud exhaust coming out behind you is not going to let anyone ahead of you hear you. It's just not. Get get headlights that strobe. Be more visible. My motorcycles all have party lights on them, so my bikes are well lit. So if I'm coming through, especially at night, my bike lights up like a damn Christmas tree, and you'll see me coming from a long way off. And it's not because I'm trying to look cool; it's because I'm trying to be visible. So I got a little remote, turn on all my lights, and they all strobe or flash or whatever, just like underglows or like the lights that people put in their bedrooms nowadays. Yeah, I've got party lights all over my bike, and all that chrome starts getting real shiny and real lit up real quick. So ride safe, stay visible, keep your head up,
Amen.
and don't speed if you can help it, which you can always help that. So ride responsibly. Don't drink and ride. Stay safe.
Amen.
Those
Don't.
are all the fun things. So cool, man. Anything else?
Those of you out there, just stay safe, and if you feel like anything's wrong, just call someone and let them know.
That's right. From Tucson, Arizona, I'm Randy.
I'm Rhodes.
Bye bye.